We've got breaking news, but a gut punch of a United States Supreme Court decision in a 6-3 decision opposed by Justice Sotomayor in her dissent. The Supreme Court has now ruled that Donald Trump can freely deport and remove people in the middle of the night with limited or no notice whatsoever and no effective due process, and can send them to killer third countries that they are not even from, like the South Sudan or Libya. And Sotomayor is livid, as we all should be. She called it out. She said in her dissent, which I'm going to read to you from, because it's not going to take me long to read to you from the majority opinion. It's only a paragraph long. Literally turned due process and Fifth Amendment rights in this country upside down in one paragraph on an emergency application without oral argument. Justice Sotomayor says that is an abuse of power by her fellow brethren on the United States Supreme Court. She also said the Trump administration doesn't deserve a stay because in this particular case, a number of screw-ups and a number of human rights violations, they sent people to countries where they had been raped, where they were likely to be killed, and then lied to federal judges about it. And Sotomayor said, that means that the Trump administration comes to this court with unclean hands. The unclean hands doctrine says you can't ask for equity. You can't ask for stays and injunctions and things like that if you yourself have blood on your hands. And that's what Sotomayor says. Let's get down to it. You're here on Legal AF. I think I know why. You want to get to the bottom of these issues without smoke or sunshine. I'm Michael Popok, and let's do it. Take a moment, hit that free subscribe button to continue this content to your YouTube channels. So here we go. Department of Homeland Security versus DVD. What does it have to do with? A series of cases that were consolidated and brought in Massachusetts federal court, representing people who had been deported and removed without notice or proper due process, or really a judge involved at all, to third countries, not where they're from, not where they agreed to go, but another country willing, because the United States is paying for it, willing to take them, including places that do not, let's just put this nicely, don't share our democratic values, don't share our criminal justice values in any way, shape, or form. Since when are we peers with South Sudan and Libya? But because they're willing, there's givers and takers in this world right now. There's what we used to call the first world countries, and they're exploiting again these third world countries that need money and need relationships with the United States, and Donald Trump is taking full advantage of it. So that got up to a Massachusetts judge. He held a series of hearings, and he heard all of the horror stories, including the hairdresser, or the gay man from Guatemala who was sent to Mexico after he told them he had been raped and attacked and tortured in Mexico. And then when the judge says, well, how'd that happen? They said, well, we have a record that he said he was okay with going to Mexico. Then it turns out that was a lie, that they had no evidence for that. And they had to tell the judge that. That's the series of effectively lying to federal judges that has Justice Sotomayor up in arms. I'm going to read to you the entirety of the decision that has changed our due process system for immigration as we know it. And I'm shocked, by the way, because there had been a series of other cases that I talked about on Legal AF that I thought the consensus was based on 9-0 decisions, 7-2 decisions, 6-3 decisions since April, that you have to at least give proper notice, due process, get them before a judge before they can be removed and deported. Nope, that's all gone now with the DVD case, because now the paragraph I'm going to read you is only about they're going to stay and block the First Circuit, which sits over Massachusetts, appellate decision to affirm the trial judge's decision and block the continued removal without due process. The judge having found the Trump administration violated his orders on a number of occasions. But they stay that block. They block the block. So here's what it rules. On application for stay. The application for stay presented to Justice Jackson and referred to the court is granted. The preliminary injunction of the district court judge in Massachusetts is stayed, pending the disposition of the appeal in the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit. So, on its face, what it means is that the injunction is going to be put on ice and stayed until we get a year down the road with a full-blown appeal at the First Circuit. Tens of thousands of people are going to suffer due process violations in the meantime, and the Supreme Court doesn't care. Sotomayor cares. Here's what she wrote. This is the first paragraph. In matters of life and death, which is how she sees the irreparable harm that's going to be suffered by these people, it is best to proceed with caution. In this case, the government took the opposite approach. It wrongfully deported one plaintiff to Guatemala, even though an immigration judge found he was likely to face torture there. Then, in a clear violation of a court order, it deported 6 more to South Sudan, a nation the State Department considers too unsafe for all but its most critical personnel. An attentive district court's timely intervention only narrowly prevented a third set of unlawful removals to Libya. Rather than allowing our lower court colleagues to manage this high-stakes litigation with the care and attention it plainly requires, this court, listen to Sotomayor's words here, this court now intervenes to grant the government emergency relief from an order it has repeatedly defied. I cannot join so gross an abuse of the court's equitable discretion. Abuse of power by the United States Supreme Court, called out by another justice of the United States Supreme Court. She then goes through all of the parade of horribles of Donald Trump and the Trump administration violating the court's orders. And she comes around to say and remind her brethren that there is a doctrine. It's called unclean hands. And that Donald Trump and the Trump administration has demonstrated unclean hands, meaning they are not entitled to equitable relief of the stay to begin with, especially under these circumstances. So she gets to, let me turn to the page where she talks about it, joined by Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson. She says, for centuries, courts have closed the doors of equity to those tainted with inequitableness or bad faith relative to the matter in which they seek relief, citing a long line of cases under the clean hands doctrine. That principle, rooted in the historical concept of the court of equity as a vehicle for affirmatively enforcing the requirements of conscience and good faith, ensures the courts do not become abettors of inequity. She's calling the United States Supreme Courts abettors, co-conspirators of inequity with the Trump administration. Here's how she ends her dissent. She says on page 18 over to 19, the Due Process Clause represents the principle that ours is a government of laws, not of men, and that we submit ourselves to rulers only if under rules. By rewarding lawlessness, the court once again undermines that foundational principle. Apparently, the court finds the idea that thousands will suffer violence in far-flung locales more palatable than the remote possibility that a district court exceeded its remedial powers when it ordered the government to provide notice and process to which plaintiffs are constitutionally and statutorily entitled. That use of discretion is as incomprehensible as it is inexcusable. Respectfully, but regretfully, I dissent. I can't even make heads or tails. I've been doing this a long time. I can't even make heads or tails of the last series of decisions about deportation, removal, and immigration due process rights. They're internally inconsistent within the United States Supreme Court. Own precedent developed since April, everything with Trump's name on it. This is what happens when the court is complicit and allows itself to be abused and used by the Trump administration in the emergency docket procedure. The emergency docket procedure is terrible for getting appropriate rulings. They say it's a technicality. They say it's procedural. They say we're not here on a full record. We're not here with oral argument. We're not here with full briefing. We're just going to make a decision for now. But it's not for now for these people. It's the irreparable harm. You can't bring somebody back from the dead. You can't bring somebody back from being tortured. Yet United States Supreme Court just sits in its ivory tower, the supermajority anyway, and just is there's just this callous disregard both for human life, human rights, and our Constitution. And you can't even, I defy them, when they go around over the summer to all of their junkets and all of their speeches and all of their book signings and whatever else they're doing this summer, I defy the majority of the Supreme Court to reconcile and defend what is the common denominator among all of their cases. I had thought, at the very least, we all agreed that human beings in the United States at one time are entitled to due process and notice. I've learned that since I was in law school starting in 1988. But that's now changed. They'll say it's procedural, it's technical, we didn't get to the substance of the merits, but you did, because you gave Donald Trump more power. He's already drunk with power. You've given him now more power to abuse and under the immigration system. And what is the message and signal you've sent to the rest of the world? You know, we used to be the country where the Statue of Liberty said, give us your poor, your tired, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Where is that? Let's be frank. My great-grandfather never would have made it to this country if Donald Trump was in charge. No way. No way. And probably yours either. So we'll continue to follow what happens next. But this is now green light to the Trump administration to deport and remove people under their depraved immigration program without due process and without really any notice. And there's nothing the three on the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor can do about it. I'm going to post on our Substack for Legal AF the entirety of this order, including the dissent. As we always do, take a look at our Substack. Join that as well. Till my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.